Over the lifetime of Ninjago, the characters have gone over many different states of abilities, but none of them have gone through more states than when it comes to Zane. He's gone through many evolutions over the time of Ninjago, and I do think it is very interesting to note, but the thing is that he has had a lot of abilities that just simply never come back. But when you put those abilities into perspective, you realise that Zane very much could have been utilising them throughout the entirety of the show, and a lot of situations would have been much easier for him. So I have pointed out 3. I'm going to look over 3 of Zane's abilities that he has seemingly since forgotten, and explain how they could have been very useful and how they just simply would have made sense later on down the line. And of course, there are many more examples of Zane abilities at that, but these are the main ones in my opinion. So let me not waste any more of your time, and let's talk about the forgotten abilities of Zane. The first one I want to talk about in terms of Zane's abilities is actually the explosive shuriken. We saw this once within the 4th season of the show. It was utilised in a way for Zane and Cole to get through the floor because of the serpents that was chasing after them. It's a really fun little scene, and that ability from Zane has definitely been very interesting to see. But this is the only time we actually get to see this be the case, and you realise that this is an ability that would have been very useful in a lot of different instances. There is no determinable reason as to why we never actually got to see this one again. As far as we're aware, he is still completely capable of it, we just never actually got to see it once more. But when you do put it into perspective, you realise that there have been many instances over the course of Ninjago's life cycle where Zane could have utilised these explosive shurikens basically to any sort of trapped purposes. Anytime they've been within a room, anytime they've been locked behind a door, they very much could have done this. The main thing I will always think of is Master of the Mountain. When they are being trapped by Griefbringer, you will note that they believe that they are completely trapped. Zane's explosive shurikens would have been very useful in this matter to basically get rid of all of the cave-in that was behind them, but he just simply doesn't do any of this. He never utilizes these abilities to any extent, and it definitely does come across weird. But the thing is that I think I know why they haven't done it for Zane anymore. I think the fact that Zane doesn't use his explosive shurikens is an indication of what they have done with Cole since that fact. Obviously, Cole in recent times have actually gotten his RX arms or his lava arms, and he has very much had the ability to get the ninja essentially out of a jam. And I think they have taken away Zane's explosive shurikens for that exact reason. It seems to be that Zane just simply hasn't got access to that ability anymore because one of them is essentially rendered useless because of the other. I think, genuinely speaking, someone else just got that ability after the fact. Is it a massive shame? Yes. Is it a case of the writers most definitely should have done something more with this situation? Yes. But the thing is that, like I said, they just simply didn't seem to have much ambition when it did come to this, and they only used it once because the scene demanded for it. So it's very much a shame to see, and I wish they used it more, but that was the first forgotten ability. The second one of Zane's forgotten abilities also does come from the 4th season, and where the explosive shurikens definitely felt debatable at best, this is definitely one of those abilities that I feel like is completely inexcusable in context of the fact that Zane could actually do it, and that is the case of the extension within his arm that allowed him to cut through his chains. This little extension of his just completely calls everything that we know into question. If Zane is completely capable of having some sort of saw-like attachment to his arm that he uses just to escape custody, then why hasn't he done it in every other instance we've seen of the ninja actually being captured? I mean, there have been multiple over the course of the show. The main one I always think of is season 11. They all just dangle there helplessly when they're basically about to meet their own demise. And Zane makes absolutely no attempt to do anything about this. And it's really interesting when you do consider the fact that he could have. It's again in similar vein, they only use it for the one time and absolutely never again, and unlike the case of the RX arms, in my opinion there is no real reason for them to have actually have done this. I think they just needed something to serve the purpose of the story, and that was basically it. If you do look very closely at this saw, you do realise that it is just a shuriken. It's not a unique model by any stretch of the imagination, but it still doesn't remove the fact that Zane is completely capable of it. It has a lot of implications on what could and couldn't have been the case within Ninjago, and I do think that is very much interesting to note. But I honestly do understand why they never included it again. But it still doesn't explain the fact that they did have it to begin with. If they really didn't want Zane to just have the ability to remove custody at any point, he basically should have just never done this, and they should have wrote a different way for Zane to have done it. But in my opinion, none of this even pales into comparison when it does come to the last ability that I want to talk about. And initially speaking, you may wonder why I'm going to bring this one up, but when you do think about it, Zane has vastly underutilized this ability, and it is the case of his human cloaking technology. The Oni trilogy introduced us into the concept that Zane was able to holograph himself into more of a human-like being. He's able to get rid of the modulated voice, he's able to take on basically a whole new identity, and it extends further into the fact that he can also assume other identities. He is able to become the likes of Snake Jaguar, or he's able to become the likes of just a completely different character in general, and it does feel like that for the most part within the Oni trilogy, they did want to utilize it a little bit more. He's in his human state a lot during this time, and even though he isn't for Season 9 and only briefly in Season 10, it did feel like they at least had a concept for it. But the thing is that once the 11-minute era came along, he just kind of forgot this was the case. He never actually utilized it through the events of Season 11, 12, 13, Seabound, The Island, none of it. None of these seasons actually were utilizing this ability in any particular way. But interestingly, it weirdly came back when it did come to crystallize, and it was shown just to show that Zane could holograph himself still, and it's used as a way to deceive Sally. But the thing is that this is kind of the only real reason they wanted to bring it back. They wanted it for a quick scene, and I guess they also wanted it as a way to bring back the Ice Emperor. But the thing is that this utilization was really weird and just called more things into question. Because not only did it show that Zane still had access to this ability, it's just the fact that he was showing that he was actively not using it. And the thing is that you can argue that the seasons where he wasn't using it, he just simply had no reason to. And to an extent, I would agree with you, but it's post-crystallized, where you realize that Zane's cloaking ability would have made sense, but it does feel like they have just completely forgotten about it. Like I said, I do completely understand the argument of simply Zane just wouldn't have needed it in those seasons, but the thing is that in future seasons, or more specifically Dragon's Rising, he definitely could have been utilizing it, but they have just not done it. If you look at Dragon's Rising, you will note that there have been a few instances now where Zane has utilized the Detective Zane outfit as a means to disguise himself in the Crossroads, and they are some really cool scenes, and I really like the attention to detail when it does come to that outfit. But the thing is that they are specifically making him go back into that outfit instead of just utilizing one of his many disguises. It feels like they've just kind of forgotten that Zane has that ability for the sake of just having him have this specific outfit. You could argue that he is utilizing the technology, but the thing is that every time we've seen it with his ninja outfit on the underneath. And if he was fully just disguising himself, like how he did with Snake Jaguar for example, he wouldn't have had the ninja suit just sitting underneath. So it does seem like it was a conscious choice to just have Zane basically in an overcoat. And it does just call into question why they forgot about the holographic. I guess they just don't want to. I guess it's just something they don't want to retouch on anymore. I'm not entirely certain, but it definitely does feel like they've completely forgotten about it. And to be perfectly honest, especially with how Dragon's Rising is going, I feel like the lack of Zane's holographic technology is the biggest loss of all. When it comes to the explosive shurikens or the ability to get out of chains, I think that is just understandable as to why they don't want that to be the case. But I do think there's a lot of missed opportunity in terms of Zane's holographic cloak. I think there could be many opportunities and many very interesting scenes that could have shown him in very different situations that could have been really fun to have actually seen, and also actually given Zane something to do in Dragon's Rising. But I do think on an overall, when you do just take a look back, you realize that Zane has very much been a product of the seasons that he has been in. There are many more abilities of Zane that we haven't even touched on. The main thing I will always think of are those shurikens that he utilized in Season 6, those weird gold ice effect ones that we never really got more of an explanation on. They were just kind of there and then they weren't. Zane has had many of these parts over the course of time, and all of them have just seemingly gone by the wayside in favor of new things, and it is just simply a shame, because Zane could have been a very interesting character with a whole new arsenal of abilities, and we just simply never got that to be. Zane once again showing that he is desperately in need of more love and more attention from the writers. It would be really cool, and definitely would have made him just this unique force of nature, and definitely would have earned his place on the ninja team. But as of now, he will just continue to be like the rest. But what are your opinion on these forgotten abilities of Zane? Do you wish for these to return? Do you wish they had more of a place within the show? And how do you think they could have utilized them over the course of time? I have brought some examples myself, but I would love to know what you guys think as well. I think it's a really interesting thing, and I'm just honestly curious, because it goes into this whole point of Zane just kind of deserves more, and he deserves more love. But again, let's just hope that happens one day, because it feels like it just hasn't, especially based by this video. But thank you very much for watching, I do hope you enjoyed. And if you did enjoy, please consider subscribing. I love discussing Ninjago with more people. And if you do want to support the channel any further, which you don't have to, you could join the legends that you've seen on screen, as they are the channel members. Thank you to each and every single one of you, your support is greatly appreciated. But like I said, that is about it for today, and thank you very much for watching. Take care. Okay,